Hey, Cecilia. Do you have a pen I could borrow?
Yeah.
Come on, hurry up! Ah! Reply to my email. Reply to my email.
What is going on with you? You have been impatient all day.
Everything's just taking so long. I can't handle the slowness anymore.
Well, I've got good news for you. Rob Manfred, the commissioner of MLB, is here today. And we're going to talk about slow play in baseball and how to speed that up. For example, don't you think that this cold open is going excruciatingly slowly?
Don't you have a show to do?
No, live show, no script. What could possibly go wrong?
It's Florida again. Good to see you guys. Thanks for being here. This is Callaway Live. I'm Harry Arnett. And, all right, stop. Come on. Enough of that. Turn off the music. Tonight on a very special Callaway Live. This show I love for two reasons. Number one, everybody has to be nice to me for 20 minutes. Number two, this is the show where we get to meet the people that have completely inspired us to be better at what we do and to really be forward-looking. And for me in particular, tonight's show is awesome because you guys probably don't know this, I grew up a massive baseball fan. What? Yes, I know. In the 70s for the Atlanta Braves, which there weren't a lot of us back then. And in the history of Major League Baseball, there have been 10 and only 10 commissioners of the sport. So the Jefe, the Grand Poobah, the Big Cheese, the Big Bat. I don't know what they call him in Major League Baseball. But tonight we are so blessed to have a man who sits right at the top of really an emergence and a renaissance of the sport of baseball all across the world. Please welcome the 10th and only 10th commissioner of Major League Baseball to our set, our humble set, Rob Manfred. See you. We're gonna hug it out. Yeah. I called you the Big Bat, and that felt a little disrespectful. But do you ever go through a day where you wake up and you have to pinch yourself that you're the commissioner of Major League Baseball?
Yeah, it happens periodically. At the beginning, it happened all the time. I mean, right after I was elected, you do get used to the idea, but every once in a while you find yourself somewhere and you say, wow, you know, I got really lucky on this one because it is the greatest job in the world.
Is it a fun job?
It's a really fun job. You know, the best part of it, I'm on a little swing on the West Coast where I'm visiting clubs. And, you know, the days are kind of busy. You talk to the employees, you meet sponsors, you talk to the owners. But, you know, the great thing, at the end of the day, you get to watch a baseball game.
Yeah.
And it's really fun.
It's not splitting rocks, as we say around here,
That's right. It is not splitting rocks.
And it's a big deal when the commissioner shows up. I mean, you have to feel that level of responsibility when you show up, that you represent an iconic part of Americana.
Well, it is a big responsibility. And, you know, whenever you go into a market, people do have questions about the game as a whole as opposed to just the individual team that they cover every day. And I guess it's good to give them an opportunity to hear what we have to say on those sort of larger industry issues.
Well, a long time ago, I coined the phrase that it is, in fact, America's pastime. And that having that responsibility, because what that means is there's a whole historical perspective and a legacy and a tradition of the sport. But at the same time, you have to be responsible for innovating in order to grow the game. How do you balance those two things at the same time?
You know, you ask a great question because it's actually the hardest thing about the job. You know, I have great respect for the history and tradition of the game on the one hand. On the other hand, no institution, even something like baseball that's woven into our culture and really important to the American psyche, can stand still. It has to move. It has to adjust to the way people are living their lives. And what we've tried to do is listen to what our fans say. We're really research-driven. I'll give you a great example. Maybe the best one is instant replay. You know, traditionalists were why do you need instant replay in baseball? Our research showed that there was a really fundamental desire among our fans, our most avid fans in particular, for us to use technology that was available to get important calls right. And when you know where your fans are, you can kind of thread the needle between respecting history and tradition and moving the game forward.
Well, there are three things. Don't send us an invoice on this, but we've stolen a lot of the ideas from you. And when you guys really were starting about thinking about the future, and there were three things really that stuck out to us. There was growing the game and reaching out to the youth. There was the sort of the convergence of technology and consumer engagement, which you mentioned, and then the last one was speeding up play. Does that sound familiar to anyone in this room? So those three things for our sport, and golf's a little different than baseball. We're we love to change the game, and there's no tradition involved. But those three things, have really been the centerpiece for how you guys have thought about growing as a sport.
They are really the centerpiece of what we're trying to do. Our thought from the very beginning was the most important thing that we had to accomplish was to pass the game on to the next generation so that the next generation embrace the game the way we do. And, youth participation, huge piece of that. And we've really found, and I bet you are finding as well, with investment, effort, and the right partnerships in a really competitive space, you can make a difference.
Well, I love some of the things you guys have done, which, for me, I have a couple of young kids, and baseball to them, my one daughter, hey, can we go throw the softball? Can we go throw the softball? 8 seconds later, she's ready to do something else. So the attention span is shifting, and people's digestion of what is kind of a sublime experience when you go to the ballpark. But
right.
Some of the things you guys have done with taking a game to Fort Bragg, for example, having much more of a connection to Little League, which you guys did this year with the
right.
nicknames on the back. Some of those things, I think, are making a huge difference with the younger people sort of having more of an access point to the game.
Yeah, well, the two you mentioned, both Fort Bragg and Williamsport, were great days for baseball. I wish I could take credit for those ideas.
I took credit for calling it national pastime. I think you can take credit for that one.
They were both actually, our COO, Tony Petitti, came up with both ideas. But, in terms of growing the sport, the idea of taking baseball live to somewhere where people don't ordinarily see it, and then to have a theme around that sort of road trip that is important to the game is a great marketing tool. The promotion that we get, in this case it was from ESPN in both cases, the promotion that you get around that special event, you can't buy. It's just so good for the game. And, Williamsport in particular allowed us to emphasize our interest in youth, our great partnership with Little League, just a lot of good themes there for us.
And it seemed like the players loved it too.
I have to tell you, the players, we actually went out and met the buses when the players arrived from the airport. They flew in that morning, and Steve Keener, the president of Little League, really had thought this all through, so he had a team on the bus with the players that actually rode in from the airport, and watching the players get off with these kids, they'd already made friends. And the team from the Dominican Republic, Carlos Martinez was like God for them. Just absolutely. Yeah. But the other really great thing is we had three players. Lance Lynn was one of them who had actually played in the Little League World Series. We're going back, and I happen to be walking up towards the field to watch one of the Little League games with Lance Lynn, and he out loud you hear him say, "It is just so cool to be back here." Williamsport's a really unique place.
I thought the one thing you might do maybe for next year to enhance that is some of the crummy players on the rosters would have to play like an inning or two, just like in Little League. But that didn't happen. It didn't happen. I was sure that was going to happen, and all of a sudden that didn't. Yeah.
I think it's kind of like the PGA Tour. We don't have any crummy players.
Well played. Only the commissioner can say that. But the other part that really I've been thinking a lot about, just it's a connection to golf, is how much
the technology and the statistics of the game have started to not only play a part in how the game is measured, but how the consumer experiences that. Like, we're seeing exit velocities now. I saw Mike Trout hit a 109 mile an hour ground ball the other night. I don't know why I was watching Mike Trout. I'm not an Angels fan, but that kind of thing drew me into watching a game I normally wouldn't care about.
Yeah, well, I think technology is really important, and it's related to the issue you raised before about attention span. You know,
What?
That's pretty good. That was really good, actually. You know, for somebody like me, when I watch a baseball game, I'm watching the baseball game. I think for some of our younger fans, it's important that you have something else going on, that chatter, that overlay, and it's relevant to how your broadcasts are going to look in the future. But I think the information that you're talking about, which is provided by StatCast, which is one of our products, I think is really important in terms of keeping people engaged in the moments that the game slows down. Oh, here's something for you to think about. That home run Mike Trout just hit, the exit velocity was whatever it was. And it's an enhancement, and I think it's really good for the game.
And then going way back, you guys in baseball, you know, at a time when a lot of sort of casual observers would think, okay, well, baseball is going to be the laggards and sort of leading what's happening in technology. You guys created MLB Advanced Media a decade ago when no one was thinking about that kind of stuff. And that is now very prescient for how people are absorbing the stuff.
Well, you know, it's been a really important development for us. I mean, it did spawn BAMTech, which we subsequently spun off and sold 70% of to Disney, which was great for the game. But more importantly, I think advanced media has filled in gaps that were going to exist in something very important to baseball. We used to have great daily coverage of our game in the print media, daily newspapers. We all know what's going on in that space, and I think MLB.com has filled that gap in terms of covering the game, wall-to-wall coverage of what remains an everyday game. I mean, it's one of the unique things about baseball. You know, you think about different athletes, different schedules. 162 games in 183 days is a lot of work.
It's a slog,
yeah.
But that's kind of that sublime thing about the game is it's having to figure out a way that people can absorb that with protecting the sort of integrity of the regular season.
I think that's right. I mean, I think one of the charms of the game is it's an everyday companion for those of us that love the game. And I think using technology to recreate that experience for younger people is really important.
And that's a big emphasis for you guys at the league level, I'm sure.
Absolutely. You know, we feel that the whole sort of image of the sport has evolved a little bit because we've been at the cutting edge of technology and using technology, you know, even on the field, you know, iPads in the dugout, things. We like that visual. It makes the sport look younger. It makes it more appealing to young people who are so attracted to technology generally.
All right, well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get right back, we're going to talk a little bit about some things that are important to us, speeding the game up, right after this with Rob. All right. Just two guys bonding, talking baseball. That's all that's going on up here. Speeding up the game is something that all of a sudden you start to hear a lot about in your sport, and in our sport, it comes up a lot, particularly when I play with Lardo here. But how much of that as an emphasis is pervasive also with trying to figure out ways to enhance the consumer experience?
I think it's crucial. I'd say this, however, you know, our research shows in the ballpark, The pace of our game is not a huge issue for fans. And why is that? There's other things going on. You have a break, you go get food, you go get a drink. You know, they have some sort of a mascot race going on the field. You're talking to the person next to you. It's a much different issue with our broadcast audience. Every break in our game is an opportunity for somebody to tune away. And I think we need to work hard to make sure that we eliminate, I think of it as dead time in the game.
Well, and the game's changed, too, because with all of the late-inning relief pitcher changes, et cetera, it used to be a 4 hot dog game for me.
Right.
And now it's like a 6 hot dog game.
Well, you know what? It's another one of those balancing acts. When you think about trying to speed the game up, you don't want to resort to changes that actually alter the competition until you absolutely have to. What you want to do first is make sure that you've dealt with the sort of the low-hanging fruit, and you know, as I said before, I think of it as dead time. So think about it this way. You get 300 pitches roughly in a game. If you get the pitcher to deliver the ball promptly, that has a dramatic effect on how the game moves along. We've gone to a pitch clock in the minor leagues. It's had a huge impact in terms of moving the game along. I'll tell you a great story. We were sitting around when we first were talking about a pitch clock. We tried it first in the Arizona Fall League, which is a great little league where guys who will be in the big leagues for the first time the next spring go and play in the fall. And some of our more traditional baseball operations people are saying, are you crazy? You know, you're going to put a clock in the game with no clock. I said, well, we're at least going to try putting a clock in the game with no. So we did it in the Fall League, and a group of pretty traditional baseball ops people went over and watched some Arizona Fall League games, and they all came back saying the same thing. You know, it's unbelievable. It completely changes how the game moves along. So that's pitch clocks is one idea. The other, you know, other things you think about are things like mound visits. You know, there's a reason why people go to the mound. No one who hasn't played the game knows quite exactly what goes on out there. I mean, there's wisdom imparted, but they never
didn't do
they don't share any wisdom of that wisdom with me. I know it's imparted. I don't know what it is. But mound visits are sort of one another thing. And then, you know, our inning breaks. You know, we sell. Everybody thinks it's a commercial issue. The fact of the matter is, we sell 90 minutes of commercial or 90 seconds of commercial time in an inning break. And it takes us roughly 2 minutes and 26 seconds to get through that 90-second break. So we got some work to do on those issues.
Well, I have, it's the only bone I have to pick with you. Your influence is my wife has now instituted a get-to-the-point clock whenever we have conversations. So I have 20 seconds to, like, make a case. Otherwise, it's
you're done.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, we took that same inspiration, not my wife's get-to-the-point clock, from you guys, and we thought, well, why don't we see if we can innovate golf a little bit? We have a little pace of play problem. I don't know if you've seen. So here are some ideas that we borrowed. So send us an invoice if you have to. But here's some ideas that we borrowed. Official rules. This is MLB helping us speed up the game of golf. So here we go. You guys know this is now you have to keep 1 foot in the batter's box.
Right.
With, there's Nomar. He was, there's a left-handed Nomar. I don't know how that happened. Little Photoshop rule. But, you know, you got to keep 1 foot in the inner batter's box. We're bringing that to golf. So all these guys that keep stepping out, there it is. You got to stay in the batter's box. Don't step out. There's Wesley Bryan, and we're gonna try that. Couple more that we hope are more funny than that. So here we go. The second one, no guarantees. We're gonna edit in a lot of laughter later. Rob mentioned the pitch clock here. This actually is a very good idea, I think, for golf. We're gonna put the pitch clock on the golfer. So there you go. As you get to the green, looking right at you, Velardo. 20 seconds, go. If you don't, that's a stroke penalty. That'll get people. So, and the last one here, thank goodness, the last one is, the ump comes out, moves things along. Rob was just talking about mound visit. We're going to have an ump also involved that comes in, moving along the caddy conversation. 2 miles an hour of wind is not going to make a big difference. Hit the ball already for that tour player that looks a lot like our own Ethan Godot. But we think that'll help kind of move things along for golf. Do you think golf takes too long?
I am a very fast player. I do like it when it moves along. If you told me I had to take a pick a round length, if I can play in 3.5 hours, that's a great pace, really good pace.
Do you watch a lot of tour golf? I guess you probably, yeah.
I do. I watch a lot of sports. You get ideas from watching other sports. I mean, one of the things when you talk about broadcast innovations, and you're seeing it more in golf broadcasts, I love this split screen not going away, kind of relevant to our inning break issue, if you can find things to fill that time up and stay in the broadcast. So you do get great ideas from it. But, yeah, I do like to watch golf.
And how much are you getting to play these days with postseason now here? I'm guessing that the clubs are probably in the trunk for a while.
It does slow down. October is always my slowest golf month because I'm on the road a lot. We have a lot of great games out there, and golf does slow down. But during the summer, I do play.
Is it? Well, with baseball being at night, it's perfect combination.
You know what? People don't. A lot of our folks work at night, right?
Yeah.
And so nobody looks for me early Saturday morning. As long as I'm out early, I'm good. I'm good.
That's great. Well, we really appreciate you being here. We know this is your busiest month, and it means a lot for us to have you here. And thanks so much, and best of luck for a great postseason.
Thank you, and I really appreciate being here. I've enjoyed it thoroughly.
That's awesome. Rob Manfred from MLB, and make sure you watch Rob would want me to say this, every single postseason game.
There you go.
Thanks for being here.